People ask Reddit. What's the scariest thing that has happened to you? I was 13 and a uniformed police officer came to my house. I was home alone, my parents had left to get my siblings from camp an hour ago. I thought I was being told they had all died in a horrible car accident, and I preemptively just burst into tears. He came to drop off a wallet my dad had lost last week. It was both the scariest thing that ever happened to me and one of the most embarrassing. Within a week I had lost hearing in both ears, and my sight in both eyes with no known cause at the time. I'm mostly good now. Ended up being a super rare autoimmune disease. Doctors figured it out in time to where my sight is back aside from the occasional blurriness in one eye, and my hearing is managed with hearing aids. Definitely wasn't fun when it happened though. It is called Cogan syndrome. There's no actual test for it aside from matching symptoms and eliminating everything else. A lot of testing and scans were involved to figure it out. Had a guy with a knife come after me. He wanted money and didn't believe me when I said I didn't have any. I wasn't lying, I really didn't have any money on me. Found out I can run much faster than I thought I could. He gave up the chase pretty quickly. I was maybe 7 or 8 when I went to a big family reunion at a hotel ballroom. I remember sneaking away from the main hall where everyone was and going through a door that led to a smaller empty room with chairs stacked along the wall. I crossed the room and went through another door and found a long hallway. I skipped down the hallway and turned back. And saw nothing but a row of doors. I tried to remember which one I came through. I kept trying to open doors, most were locked, one opened into a dark room, one opened into like a stage with rows of empty seats filled with cardboard cutouts of people laughing. Something about them was horrifying and I suddenly felt like someone was watching me, so I ran away. I kept running and running trying to find my way back, only finding empty dark rooms every time I opened a door. It felt like a nightmare that would not end. I can't remember exactly how I got back, I think my uncle found me, but that experience stayed with me. I'm 50 but I still occasionally have nightmares about it, bad dreams in which something is chasing me through those empty rooms. Deserted hotels and long hallways with doors still freak me out, too. In August last year I experienced an episode of sleep paralysis. My mind woke up but my body didn't. I couldn't move or talk, couldn't open my eyes. I started freaking out and hyperventilating. My husband woke up thinking I was having a nightmare. He tried to wake me up. I couldn't communicate to him that I was awake. The best I could do was make a guttural noise in my throat. I was limp, could feel my mouth was open and couldn't close it. He then realized I would make a noise whenever he spoke. He asked if I was awake, I responded with the noise. He said do it twice if I was awake. I did it twice. He asked if I could move. I made the noise once. Finally getting through to him was a relief for me, but was a whole new nightmare for him. He thought I was having a stroke. He called an ambulance. Halfway to the hospital my body started to wake up. By the time we arrived at the hospital I felt normal. But I had been in that state for 20 minutes, the most terrifying 20 minutes of my life. I stepped into a lift and it dropped about 6 inches. Almost dying from a semi-fatal disease. Spending 3 weeks in a chemically induced coma. Discovering on waking up that I'd missed a birthday. Then having to train my legs to walk again, hands to write and so on. I was in a hospital years ago and was given some meds. I forget what it was, but shortly afterwards a doctor came into my room to ask me a few questions. As the interview went on, my speech started slurring and my body started curling over as I lost control of my motor functions. I started to panic and all I could utter were random moans. A few nurses rushed in with a Benadryl shot and it went away, but I was terrified for a little while. I almost got trampled by a herd of horses when I was about 12 or 13. I rode horses a lot and loved to go out to the pasture, swing up on my horse, and then just sit in him as he walked around grazing. One day I did this and he got right next to the fence and was cropping grass by the base of the fence post. As he brought his head up, the backs of his ears touched the hot wire that lined the top fence railing. Shocked the ever-loving shit out of him. As he spun around, I grabbed his mane, I had hopped on him without a bridle or saddle, and hung on for dear life right as he shot off like a rocket. Well, him spooking scared the entire herd, so as he went flying, a dozen other horses joined in behind him for a wild gallop. At one point we got to a really rocky area, and he had trouble navigating the small boulders at a mad gallop. He tripped and I freaked out and let go. I flew into a pile of big rocks and then the entire herd of horses came over the top of me. I honestly should have been broken by the fall into the rocks, and I definitely should have been trampled by all the horses that went over the top of me. But miraculously, I was just slightly banged up and winded. I still don't know how those odds worked out. Shadow, I'm sorry your ears got shocked, but that was a dip move. I stopped a man from assaulting a woman in a parking lot and he chased me into a grocery store. The police showed up and he resisted arrest and assaulted one. Went to jail. I hope she's okay. The cops told me it was domestic violence. I just hope she didn't go back to him. I don't feel like a hero. I'd hope most people would have tried to stop him. It was so scary though. It still scares me to go grocery shopping there. It brings back anxiety. I'm lucky he didn't have a gun. Carpopedal spasm. Was extremely hungover, breathing hard, and trying to not puke in the car. Suddenly my jaw locked. It felt like my head was being squeezed super hard. Then my arms locked up at this weird angle and I couldn't move anything. I've never had a seizure in my life, but I knew I was going to start seizing if I didn't get help. Turns out it happens when you get too much oxygen, and your muscles lock to get it out of your system, and a seizure was in fact the next step. I was at a Houston Rockets basketball game. Before the game, I had eaten at a seafood restaurant with my date. We had nice seats, 5th row from courtside. Half an hour into the game, I started feeling sweaty. I told my date that I was not well and that we need to go. She was very unhappy. I dropped her off first. Then I was driving home and I had to pass by downtown Houston on my way home. I saw the sign for a hospital and I have no idea why. I decided to take the exit and go to the hospital. When I got to the building, I drove to multiple levels trying to find a spot. Parked my car and then walked to where the emergency entrance was. The last thing I remember is walking towards the registration desk close to the entrance of the emergency room. When I woke up, I was in a hospital bed with drips attached to my arm. I'd been out for almost 4 hours. The doctor later told me that my blood pressure had really fallen and I had almost gone into anaphylactic shock. If I had driven home, there is no way I would have survived. Now I keep an EpiPen with me all the time. Got caught committing theft, possessing drugs as a young man growing up in Eastern Europe, and got sentenced to be mucked to set me straight, sort of a semi-official punishment they used. Basically the criminal is taken to a cowshed, sat in the corner and tied up, 6 to 8 shovelfuls of cow manure are shoveled onto them, and they're left there till sundown. Got sentenced to 4 hours as a first offense. As a city boy I underestimated it at first and was happy to avoid jail, but when the cruiser pulled up to the barn, being led into that cowshed in handcuffs is terrifying. I crashed my mom's car about 2 years ago. I ran off the side of the road, and I crashed it between 2 trees. I was going 45 in a 25. I learned my lesson from that. I think I might have gotten out with a fractured ribs from it, but I totaled my mom's car. I think the scariest part about it was that I knew in that moment that I could have died, and to this day I've been watching my speed and trying not to kill myself in the meantime. I hate myself for crashing my mom's car. We got her another car, but still I can't believe I did something that stupid. It's also one of the scariest things I ever did because I could have died. I got my tonsils removed when I was like 8. Something went kinda wrong and I woke up the next morning with my bed covered in blood from head to waist. I tried to get up but I almost fainted and started vomiting coagulated blood. I was already pretty scared, but then the doctor that was checking up on me told me it's a small miracle I'm not dead. It took me a long while to be able to go to sleep and not seriously consider the possibility that this may be my last night. I've had a lot of personal close calls, injuries, fights, whatever. All that pales in comparison to the kid not breathing when she was born. My first psychotic episode was diagnosed a long time ago, but never also with psychosis. But yeah, I woke up in a hospital and knew right away where I was and just decided to wait until a doctor came in. I found out I was unconscious for 2 days. And it took me a month to no longer use a cane or walker as I was found passed out in a field and had extreme dehydration. Then all the memories of the episode came back. And then 1 month later, I had a second one happen. Dip is scary as duck. I got bit in the face by a 160-pound mastiff. He gave absolutely no warning and had been very sweet up that point. I was extremely lucky and came away with only a small wound, but boy did I see my life flash before my eyes when it happened. The first time my 2-year-old had a seizure, nothing can prepare you for it. I knew he could get them as I had them as a baby myself. Even knowing that I still thought he was dying at the time, he's fine now though. Got stabbed in my head when I was 19. Doctor spent 6 hours trying to save my right eyesight and told me I was less than 2 inches away from being a vegetable. Being regularly taken as a hostage when I was between 5 and 7 years old. My biological father would grab me and shove me in the car when he knew he would be running from the cops. His mindset was that they would be less likely to take aggressive actions with a child in the car. I also remember one time that he took me along. He took me to some stranger's house and left me with those people for several days. Accidentally shot my brother's Glock 19 off in my parents' house when I was in 5th grade. Went through 4 walls. Scary part was I almost got my younger brother. He had drywall particles in his hair. From being so close to where the bullet came through his room. I was awake at around 1 a.m. and heard a screaming noise outside, and then laughing I almost shat my pants because I thought someone was dying, and it took me a solid 10 minutes to figure out that it was just coyotes making noise. There was a bomb threat in my neighborhood when I was a kid. A cop came to my door and told me there was a hostage situation in my neighborhood. A bank manager lived a few doors down from us and someone broke in and held him and his whole family hostage with a dipload of dynamite. I was by myself at home because my mother had gone to the store. She couldn't get back into our neighborhood. It ended when the guy holding them hostage shot himself and I heard it. Thank you for listening to another B-Town Reddit Stories episode. Hit the subscribe button and check out our channel for more stories. Let us know your opinion about this topic in the comments.